Welcome to Straight Talk with Carly Alyssa Thorne. And today I have the pleasure to talk to a brilliant author and person that I absolutely feel such kindredship with. And her name is Cherie Doyen. And I actually am almost completely done with her book called Junebug. And so today, her and I are going to be focusing on thriving, not just surviving. So both her and I have backgrounds, and her journey is obviously different than mine. My personal journey has been that I grew up with sexual, verbal, and physical abuse, and a lot of people know that. And I'm going to let her share hers a little bit. And I really want to give the audience a lot of skills and tools and just be really open and frank about some of the journey, some of the tools we both have experienced, used, what has helped us, what has maybe even traumatized us, made it worse. And so I'm just really thrilled to have you with me today, Cherie.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely.
I appreciate it. And I think so often that it just is a good, a comeback point to say, hey, yeah, I had that. You know what I mean? To be able to identify with the story, not completely to say, that's exactly my story, but to be able to have a place of commonality makes us not feel so alone, I think.
Well, that's the beauty I always tell people about books. Is people say to me, well, I can't, there's so many books about abuse. There's so many, books about recovery. And when I try and explain to people is that you never know who is listening to you at that very single moment who needed to hear exactly what you had to say. Because energy is this, kinetic thing. And I can read 20 different books about social media or about abuse. However, each one is going to touch me differently. And I might have a deeper connection with one than another. And one might help me in a different way than another. So I urge
it's kind of what you like need at that very moment.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. So the first thing I'd love to ask you, and I'd love to ask you, first of all, I know a little bit about it, others don't, is your book Junebug? I mean, sorry, not Junebug, Junebug. What was the inspiration behind that specific title? And then we're going to get a little bit into your story.
Well, I have a really strong Native American influence that has been very spiritually guiding through my journey. It's kind of everywhere I went, I ended up falling in line with a Native American Indian who had these brilliant pieces of information to share with me. And the more I studied and the more I learned, I loved the, animal symbolism. And, the animals were very touching to me growing up and still are. I have such a connection with animals. And Junebug, spiritually, if you think about Junebug, what? She carries her armor around with her all the time. She's running constantly. She never stops running. And she gets tired and burned out quickly, right? And don't turn her upside down. She has a hard time getting back up. So that's kind of where I landed with her. And June is spring. So
I really love that. It's a beautiful, I love symbolism, and I love the way you did your book where each chapter actually has a symbol and you actually say what the symbol means. I like you, love symbology, and I'm very eclectic that I love various parts of Indian practices and Reiki and there's parts of all the different religions that I love. There may be one piece from Kabbalah and one piece from Judaism and one piece from, I just find that everything, all healing modalities and the different things have different pieces that we may need to fit our puzzle. So I'd love to start talking a little about your journey and how you incorporated that into your book.
Well, when I started my healing journey, my kids grew up, and it was finally the first time that I could just stop. And I found myself again back in nature by myself. I always land somewhere on a cliff with water nearby. And there I again found meditation. I didn't know that's what it was at the time. I was, traveling to these retreats and trying to learn meditation and realize finally that was what I have done all along, right? Even as a child, that's what kept me alive, was being able to center myself like that. And, that was huge for me. I'm sorry, I got a little lost in my story.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Put me back on track.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so what I'd ask you is you start sharing a little bit about your journey, and you're talking about how you always landed next to water, and that
And
brought you.
that kind of was a huge trigger for me because that got me back to my place. Like I was instantly landed back at the place I always went as a child. And there, then I could access the gifts that I was able to maneuver my situations with. My telepathy, that suddenly became not a dysfunction, but something of an advantage, right? You know, when you're looking at it as a dysfunction, all you've got is all these voices in your head. Who is that? What is that? You know, and being able to come back to that point, then I was controlling the telepathy, but versus it controlling me. You know, I was versus being just sprung from my body. I learned how to control leaving my body. I learned to understand that that's what I was doing. And all these things that were labeled as dysfunction suddenly became great gifts to me. And once I realized that that's how I survived, I turned back and I was like, wow, if I could survive that, life should be a piece of cake.
So let's talk about it, because a lot of people have no idea what we're talking about when we leave our body. So when people are now this is we're talking now. I want to do a little pre-frame here. First of all, neither of us are doctors. Neither of us are psychologists. I encourage anyone who may be depressed or even could be possibly suicidal or needs to talk to somebody, please go do that. Dial 911. Reach out to whoever you need to, and realize that it is strength, not weakness, when we reach out for help. So her and I are going to be talking about some really deep topics here, and it may cause triggers for somebody, or you know, you might have a meltdown or whatever, and that is okay. I really encourage you to go, you know, call a friend, whatever you need to. So when these are our personal stories, okay, and everyone's stories are unique. When we talk about leaving our body, usually people that have been abused, one of their coping mechanisms, which some people may call disassociation, is our body may be physically present there while the abuse is happening. However, the soul or the child, to actually be able to handle it or deal with it, literally kind of like leaves their body, or some people call it floating out of their body. They may be looking down at their body. They may actually go to a place where, and I'll let June, I always go back to the June bug. Yeah. Her character, literally her June bug, where she would go to cope. And that's what she was just talking about when she said she went back to water, because in the book, she always goes over this beautiful water rainbow, and she has these spirit guides and all that. So I'm going to let her talk about that now. I just wanted to let you know that when she says I'm leaving my body, we're talking about, that's what we're talking about. So actually now go actually relay how the experience of leaving your body and the tool that is not dysfunction, how that actually enabled you to realize that it actually could be a skill.
Well, I think that, you know, I came upon this beautiful healer at one point, and you know, she said to me, you know, your game, you know, was set up. I was so young. I was 6 months old at my first near-death experience. Well, where would you go? Like, I went back home. I went back into the arms of God, you know, and I would land on the plane of masters. I would hang out with Jesus, and you know, the Rainbow Bridge. This is kind of a cool story, because I was always taken across this bridge, and there was like this village on the other side where, you know, there was a seer who would show me my life, and he would show me in reality what the pieces I was missing. And anyway, I learned much later after writing the book that that's a real place. Like the Rainbow Bridge crosses the Colorado River, and they believe they're gods to live on the other side. And I was like, how beautiful that that was given to me, right? And with no prehistory, I had no history of that at all, you know.
The one thing I want to point out, something she said that's really important. I'll get stuff all the time, or people ask me questions and I know the information. I have no idea why I know the information. The only difference between Cherie and I is that we've actually taken the time to hone some of these skills. I have to emphasize that we are all spiritual beings. We are all interconnected. We are all intuitive. We are all empathic. We actually all are psychic on some level. The only difference is that some people need proof to see that these things exist. Other people second guess the things that they're feeling or hearing. there's so many things that detach us from our oneness or our spirituality. And whatever your spirituality is, or whatever your religion is, or what you believe or don't believe, atheism, no God, whatever you call your spirituality is totally fine. We're just sharing our own personal experiences. And I encourage everyone to be open-minded, and you might find something that touches you and actually opens you up to find your own. So
I like you. I touched all the religions. I touched all the spirituality. That's how I got through it, right? There were different customs from each place, that I love the Buddhists. This is one way I integrated, right? The Buddhists have a practice where they call upon, they have many gods, right? So they would call upon a certain god that carried an essence and asked to be infused. Well, I started calling my peeps, right? I called my panther in where I had housed my power. That's where my power was, right? Yeah, I called on him anytime I got afraid, and the teacher, that wisdom. I was like, bring that wisdom inside of me. I don't want it outside. I don't want to have to leave to find my wisdom, right? And so I did that every morning until one day they all just jumped inside. It was the most beautiful experience.
I know people here sometimes, and I'm just going to use this analogy because I think it's the closest one someone can understand, is a lot of times, a pastor or a preacher or even a speaker will say, I don't know, I just get on stage and it just all comes in. Or I get on, get in front of all my followers, and the preacher situation, they'll go, it's not me. It's just coming through me. I am just. So,
I like to say I'm jumper cables.
Yeah, it's like sometimes I seriously will know knowledge. I have no idea why I know it, and I've given up attempting to. How can I put this? The minute I gave up the digging or the analysis paralysis to try and figure out, and I use the word try because I think it was pointless to do that, to figure out how, I actually invited more things inside of me, because not everything is explained in the way we need to see it as the physical beings that we are. We're living as physical beings in this body. There's so many multi-sensory things going on around us, whether you believe in chakras, spirits, whatever that is to you, that the minute we discard our doubt and happen to have everything explained to us, you'll be surprised how these just doors open and discoveries happen. And
I think that often, as adults, we allow ourselves the thought that trauma is a gateway to a completely different way of thought. Usually after a huge trauma, we come out with our priorities shifted, which, we often say, a person can be snapped into enlightenment, at that point of trauma. And access to their gifts, such as lifting a car off of a child, right? A mother being able to lift a car, that supernatural. Well, if you're 6 months old and have access to that energy, you don't understand that the average person doesn't have that, right? So that suddenly becomes a crazy train, where the label starts coming up. Well, wow, so-and-so isn't here, and they can't hear that person talking, or they can't see that spirit over there, or I wonder if they can hear the words inside my head like I can hear the words inside their head. And I think the way, especially in my generation, it was very much like, oh, well, you're hearing voices, don't talk about that. That's a crazy label. And I think that a lot, through my therapy as well, I got a lot of labels. Just like the disassociation. Why is that a label? People sit down and learn to astral travel. Why does it have to be something different? I don't think it was anything different. I was meditating, even though I rocked, I would rock, I would tap my foot, I would get this internal rhythm going that I would focus on, and I would count. Which, yogis do that, right? I had access to that rhythm and that way of doing that, and in the West, that's not how you meditate. So that's not what we called it. What would we call that now? Some sort of level of autism?
it's fascinating.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, actually, when I was in the night, I'm 50 now, so back in the 1982-ish through 85, when I was still in high school, I started, like, I had this quest, because I had a lot of immune issues being born. My mother had Cherie Doyen, she was pregnant with me. And I started massively studying and diving into Western medicine, like real physical Western medicine. I got a bunch of certifications working for New York State. And then I also was avidly seeking to find peace with all my demons, if you will. And I started a lot of Eastern philosophies, and that's continued for 25 years of studying and integrating and, you know, processing. And anyways, I worked in group homes in New York State with autistic kids, Down syndrome, blind, deaf, you name it. And it was fascinating to me because you're right, the labels that we put on these people, however you actually tuned into them, like literally sat with them, like for example, Down's children, they're the most loving beings. They really have no sense of, I don't know, how can I put this, meanness. I mean, yes, when they get older, they can be a little more temperamental or stubborn, but they're just loving beings. They just love to hug, and a lot of times you'll see them mostly smiling. I mean, all kids might have behavior issues. However, if you really look into an autistic child, they are so much more brilliant than we give them credit for. And the new philosophies and new studies and scientific, and I you know, a lot of times they can't actually say it scientifically, is that when a child who might be autistic or even schizophrenic, by the way, are literally in the two worlds, and they haven't learned how to be in both worlds.
Exactly, so, and I get it.
We call them crazy, but that schizophrenic person is in the other planes, and their body is here in this physical plane, and they're hearing the voices and doing all stuff, and we're calling them crazy. And the only difference is no one has taken the time to sit with them and teach them the tools on how to be in this earth now, here. And those other things that are going on are just parts of information. How many times do we see little children talking to their imaginary friend? Are they talking
to an imaginary friend?
Right. Exactly. Are they talking to their guide? Are they talking to an angel? Whatever. What is it that they're talking to? We shut children down. They are still so connected to source. Instead of saying, oh, you know, we're making it an issue, actually go with them, be with them, and go. And I actually do a lot of work with parents who have children. They're very intuitive and very sensitive. And I said to them, when you start actually talking to them like that exists, you'll actually get inside and find out what's really going on.
Well, and you might learn something. Because if you believe in evolution, our children should be smarter than us and more developed than us. And, you know, they don't have all the filters in place to not believe. You know, I love working healing wise with kids, because pretty much all you have to do is tell them they're fine. You know, I mean, with adults, it's like, you know, they build it back almost as fast as you could shift it, right? You know, but kids are just like animals. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, I just want to encourage people to realize you're not crazy. If you're having feelings like body memories and sensations and all these things going on, when people tell you, one of the things I was always told, oh, you're just a promiscuous child. I'm like, a child doesn't know to be promiscuous. It was like, I was crazy. It's like, no, you're just a promiscuous. You just
well, and I like to say what's mystical experience to one man is crazy to another.
Right.
You know? Because, I mean, if somebody would have followed, you know, Jesus, Muhammad, you know, Gandhi around, they would say they were crazy. You know, the way they were choosing to live their lives and the experiences they were having and the experiences they chose to believe. You know, and I have to say with mine, you know, what I was experiencing here was not a whole lot of fun. And, you know, it seemed less real to me than what I was experiencing on the other side. And, you know, when that was the hardest part for me, was learning. And it was been in the last 5 or 6 years to want to be here.
And that's a really important point too. I want to encourage people too that, you know, people, I know when I was younger, I tried committing suicide 3 times. And I really can't emphasize enough when people are saying, oh, antidepressants are bad, or Western medicine's bad, or Eastern. Nothing works. Let's put it this way: you are an individual, and what might work for you might not work for somebody else.
And it should all just be molded together. Why is it one or the other? It should not be one or the other. We're all beings, you know, mind, body, spirit, all one. You know, we can't just fix the body. We can't, you know, it's almost as soon as I have a negative thought, it manifests in my body, I feel like, you know, I mean, almost instantly.
I tell everybody, find the, and here's the thing, a lot of people are like to hear the word counselor or psychotherapist, and they're like, oh my God, and then I'm going to get labeled. So it wasn't until I found an actual person that was licensed, that was really a psychotherapist, whatever. However, when I went in the office, it had crystals and, a little bowl with sage. And so, and then I knew I was home. I knew I could talk about the spiritual stuff. I knew I could actually share those things without being told I was crazy. What I'm saying here is, everybody's different. Someone who's really analytical may need a real analytical psychotherapist or counselor, whatever you want to call them.
And I needed all of it.
Right.
I needed all of it.
Yep. And somebody else may like go to someone who's just a spiritual healer. Just know that you need to find your own path. And it may be that at one point you do need to take antidepressants, and then you grow, and then you don't, and then you practice Eastern. It may be that you want to go see a Reiki healer. It may be that you want to go see a priest. Whatever it takes for you to become whole, or for you to become someone that's empowered and thriving, not surviving, that's what you need to do.
And can I just say this? We didn't get in this place by just one incident.
No, we did not.
Right? So each one of those incidents, each incident has its own set of triggers, its own set of strategies that that child put into place. We can't even remember them. We don't even know them. And you're not going to get them, they've all been put in place in different fashions, in different ways. It's not like you're going to come in with a magic wand and take them all out in one swipe. It's like finding all the landmines that, they have placed in a field. You're going to find some of them, and then you're going to go back through, and you're going to find some of them, and it's just a process, I think. And I think that it was important for me to find a therapist that had could make a thought connection between what I was saying. I met with some therapists that I felt like that their well hadn't been dug deep enough to reach me. And so they're making comparisons between experiences that they personally had and myself, and getting yelled at dinner and what I experienced at dinner were two different things, and so it was important for me to find somebody that could reach me. And there were times where it was like, I wanted to talk to someone who had lived it. It's like riding the rapids with a guide who has ridden the rapids since he was a child, or somebody who has read books about riding the rapids.
It's very important. I mean, one of the simplest analogies I tell all the time is, would you go to someone who's never been married and never had kids and ask them about marriage and children?
Exactly.
Okay, so now, mind you, if you go to a therapist who's been, whether it be sexual, verbal, physical abuse, all I'm going to tell you is obviously their journey experience is going to be unique. However, it is important to see people that can empath, can understand some of what you're going through, because otherwise there's going to be no connection in terms of them really being able, you're going to feel like it's a lie. Like, for example, they're going to say, oh, it's okay, you're fine. And you're going to be like, really? What, have you experienced this?
Well, I think we have, our compassion is triggered by being able to connect a dot, right? To be able to draw a line between, okay, that happened to me, and this is the way I felt about that. And, so then I can project how you're feeling almost. That's kind of how we relate, right? So if you've got a therapist who's had a peachy keen life, and you're going in there and having, dysfunction from the time that before you could even walk, how can they understand that outside of reading it out of a book? And I'm not saying therapists aren't valid. I'm saying be choosy.
Yeah, you just need to find the person that resonates with you, that you really that you can be honest with, open with, and get the work done. And mind you, one thing I want to point out is, as both of us have gone on our journey, it's not like, I get this all the time. People look at my Facebook page, and I also work, I'm not just a person that does a lot of spiritual or metaphysical work. I do a lot of business work with CEOs and companies. And I literally have to kind of separate those worlds, where my transformational metaphysical world is kind of here. And I know which people I can actually talk to about. And my business and my corporate world is over here. Now, mind you, not to say that my corporate world people don't know that this part of my life exists. I just, I realize that I can't be speaking all woo-woo, which I'm not that type anyway. However, I there's a place and a purpose and a time to share or to go to a certain place or a group, whatever it is that you need, and find the tools that you need. I pretty much have lived with post-traumatic stress disorder my entire life, and I was having anxiety attacks, all this crazy stuff, and I had no idea what was going on. And, it took me a lot of different people to find the tools. I didn't want to be in cocktails of meds, okay? That was just not
me either.
do. I wanted to be awake and conscious, not be drowsy and knocked out. At the same time, I couldn't go near. I was having panic attacks, I had body memories. I was, little things would trigger me. And I also wanted to exist in this society, right? So I did choose to hospitalize myself to find some tools. I did choose, to go to some groups. And, it was years of layering and attempting suicide and all these different things. I'm 50 now, mind you, okay? These are like, if you're like,
I'm 52, so I get it, yeah.
It's like, they're like, well, how could you be positive all the time? You've had 30 surgeries, or, I'm like, you don't think I've ever had my meltdowns? You don't think I've ever done stupid things? I'm freaking human. I think we've all done things. We all have a past. Stop burying it under the carpet and let people know on a certain level, not from a place, and this is why we're having this conversation, a very deep and open conversation. We're thriving, okay, because we've done the work. No one's going to do the work for you. You have to.
There's no magic pill, no magic wand.
There is not.
You just have to sit down and do it. You have to connect the dots, and you have to face and be responsible. I finally, I think it's interesting because you run, right? And when was the last time that I was actually hurt? Like, when was the last time that anybody actually molested me or beat me or, abused me? What? I was probably 17. Okay. So, I've spent the last 40 years just running. And finally, I realized it is my responsibility to stop and stop running and face what's around me and deal with my family. That doesn't, I think that's a big thing because, again, it's like walking away from everything because you don't remove yourself from a cult and then go have dinner on Sunday.
You don't. And I'm going to share something I normally don't share. I've shared a few things on some shows that I would never share because people are like, oh my God, you could lose clients because of that. And you know what? At the end of the day, again, I don't believe in shoving things under the carpet. I have to tell you, my journey was, it took me getting married and divorced and all this crazy. My journey was I kept getting abusive relationship after abusive relationship after abusive relationship. Now, mind you, all my family members were just like, well, she must just love this because if they were really this toxic, why is she there? And of course, I didn't know any different or any better because that's all I grew up with on some level. And of course, so my family, they didn't really understand. And well, a part of it was blinders, a part of it was disbelief, a part of it was all these other stories. And it took my husband committing suicide for me to actually literally stand up, put my feet down and go, and actually break that chain and cycle. I literally divorced everybody. My family, my name, I changed my names. My birth initials were SOS, which was really hard for me. And I still have issues with, I'm just reestablishing my relationship with my mother. And I'm actually very thankful and blessed for that. And, you have to understand too, is like my mom and dad or my brother who I haven't spoken to in a very long time, everybody comes from their own stuff. I don't blame my brother. Now, mind you, when I was younger, I was really, really angry and I hated a lot of people. I mean, you know what? I was. It just is. And you have to understand is they all come from their stuff. It's a generational thing. My father came from when he was, growing up where he was yelled at and hit, right? My mother went through her own stuff. Everybody goes through their own stuff. And I'm not going to say my real name because my birth given name, because I do believe in also protecting people. This isn't like me trying to say I have a really horrible family or our mom's a hard person than you, whatever. She's not. She just did the best that she could with the tools that she had, right?
We all come here with our suitcases full. And, the ones of us that decide to empty them, then we begin to live, right? Exactly. Otherwise, what's in our suitcase affects everyone around us. And we don't have to stand and let somebody beat us with their suitcase, And I think that what we need to realize with family is there comes a point we have, especially children, they wake up every morning with forgiveness in their heart, hoping for a different choice by the grown-up, right? And we're not talking about mistakes. Okay. Every parent makes mistakes. We're not talking about that. We're talking about with intent to do harm. Right. And in those situations, I think a child wakes up every day with forgiveness in their heart. And there comes a point that it's the responsibility of the other party as well to make a different choice. And it is our responsibility to move aside from the swinging door, right? We don't have to be beat with it. We don't have to get smacked in the face every time. We can stand over here and be receptive to a point that there may be a different choice made. Right? I think that's how I stand with my family is, I never use their names. I published even my book under a different name, my married name. So, they're not involved. It's like, I understand, I respect your space. I respect your truth for what it is. That's why I wrote Junebug the way it was. It was very much from June's perspective. It's like, I walk away and say, that's my piece of truth. Everybody else has their own piece. And I don't think, there comes a point where you just say, hey, I get it. I get you have your baggage, but that doesn't entitle you to do harm to me. So I'm going to stand over here and wait for you to make a different choice without judgment. That's the trick.
Exactly. And you also have to come to peace with it. They may never be able to change their path. Okay.
They may not.
I don't think I'll ever have a relationship with my brother, just because he's hurt about a lot of things and, whatever. I've reached out, he doesn't understand or whatever, right? And I have had to come to peace with that. My father since passed. My mother, she remarried after they got divorced eons ago. And I didn't speak to her for literally almost 10 years after my husband committed suicide because they blame everybody, not my mother. I turned my husband in. And I finally, stood up, went to a, victims counseling place, and they created a situation so that I could be saved because he was going to kill me, those type of things. But my point is, so everyone was like, well, if it was so bad, why didn't you leave? They didn't understand that as I was choosing to leave, he became more dangerous and more violent, and no one saw that. And no matter how many times I attempted to get him help, it was still my fault.
Well, and the thing is that, then everybody's focused on that one incident. And what was the whole train that led you to there?
Exactly.
And who had responsibility through there? So that's what we need to all quit doing to each other, is placing judgment on one incident, because we all have a train we've been riding.
Oh, absolutely. It was an amazing ride. And that was and I encourage everyone when they finally come to a place of wholeness and healing, I really do encourage people to get a new name for various different reasons. Well, they know that energy is energy. So my birth initials being SOS, what does that stand for? It stands for help.
Yeah.
Right? And all my friends that really knew me called me Cat, because literally cats would come out of, I could be walking, they'd come out and rub up against me. And I've always had cats in my life. And one day I sat down and Carly Alyssa Thorne came to me just like that. And one of my teachers had told me this beautiful analogy, because us growing up, we never had boundaries. I was never allowed to lock my door or any different things, right? And so I had no idea what boundaries were. So this one teacher said to me, I want you to visualize when you wake up in the morning where you take from your heart, I want you to visualize a rose path of petals. Like you're sending love to everyone when you start your day. On the side of those rose petals are thorns. Those are your energetic boundaries. And I'd always had a tattoo, that had, beautiful rose that were always been very drawn to roses, and they had these little thorns. So literally the thorn, even though mine isn't spelled like the actual thorn is THORNE, is my way of saying, you know what? I am open-minded. I respect where you are. I respect where I am now. And I am no longer a doormat. I also have certain boundaries, and I will still send love. However, I will not accept or tolerate being treated this way. And realize as we've finally done our healing, we teach people how to treat us by the way we talk to others, how the way we treat others. And now
absolutely. It's the way you show up.
Exactly.
I think that the way, that's part of what's going on with women today, is that we've all been so violated that we're showing up with the back door open.
And I also want to point out, because I know you just said women, there are a lot of men out there that are also in abuse.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Spousal abuse. So and here's the sad part for men, because they're men, they feel like they're really not allowed to say anything, because how could a woman beat them? How could a woman, put them in the situations they're in? And I kid you not, that's not the way it works. You get so beaten down that it's easier just to throw your hands up in the air and accept what's happening than to fight. Because the more you fight,
well, because you're in overwhelm, so it's almost like swimming with your nostrils just barely at the surface of the water. A slight wave and you're going under, so you just don't even have the capacity to fight.
You don't. And realize that if you're choosing to get out of a violent situation, please don't do it mindlessly. Go get help and put a plan in place, because they can feel our fears, like a dog can sense fear. And the minute you put a plan in place to escape a situation is the most volatile, most dangerous time ever.
Oh, so for sure. And something I'd like to put out there for women who are becoming aware and ready to make a different choice is, to spend some time with themselves, have some quiet alone time and connect some of those dots, because, we can't just keep looking at the current situation. Let's backtrack a little bit and heal what happened, because that's, I guess, where I was talking. Whoever is in that stream of trauma, we have left the door open for the next one and the next one and the next one, unless we go back and give a deep bow to that kid, man. Give a deep bow to that kid, because they saved you. That kid saved you. And how are we repaying him? As we were saying a while ago, like, I'd been out for 17 years, and for 40 years, I still lived like I was getting abused every day. So it was all that she did and all she endured didn't really matter to me. I couldn't even see it, right? Because I was still running and still, living like a survivor. And somehow we wear that very proudly, right? Like, I'm a survivor. It's like, in any other frame of reference, survival is not something we strive for. It's like, let's live past that, right?
It's so important to get to the place of thriving and loving yourself. One of the 4 phrases that I tell everybody, and a lot of clients that I work with, I do have people that come to me for issues that are traumatic, because they know I can understand an empath, is you are loved, you are appreciated, you are worthy, and you are beautiful. When you can learn to actually really embody those statements, even if they don't feel really good, and yes, I know affirmations, people are like, they don't work, and there's all sorts of ways nowadays. There's all sorts of new ways. There's NLP, there's hypnosis, there's meditation, there's body talk. There's a million modalities out there, and there's going to be one that works for you. Okay, just know that
something that was really powerful for me was, in the beginning, like, I couldn't make eye contact with myself. I couldn't do it. I couldn't look myself in the eye, and I thought, if I can't look myself in the eye, how can anyone else look me in the eye? If I can't see me, how can anyone else see me? Right? And I found I was always averting my eyes, always, always, always. And it was very powerful. I loved the affirmations you were saying. And I would add, look yourself in the mirror and say them to your eyes. It was hard. That was powerful for me.
It is. And just know that the biggest piece is that self-love, because if you can't love yourself, nobody can. And like you're saying, one of the things I was told, and people ask me all the time, is, well, what did I do? Okay, so here's a really big, powerful piece. People are always saying, well, I can't forgive that person because they did this. Because, there's a big movement of forgiveness, okay? Let me explain this little kind of caveat to that. Until we can forgive them and ourselves, we can never move forward. It doesn't mean you forget the act. No, I don't mean forget. I mean forgive the act. The actual, act of violently raping or abusing or hitting or whatever that abuse is yes, definitely wrong. However, you still have to forgive that person, because they have their own baggage stuff to deal with. You have to forgive yourself for doing the best that you could. And then you have the choice to let it go and move on. There's a lot of people, I know I literally had chunks of my childhood gone. And it was very frustrating for me because I kept going to therapist after therapist after therapist saying, I want to remember. I can feel it physically inside me. I can feel the body members. I can feel the pain. I can feel the panic. And I have some pictures. I don't have all the pictures. So you go to friends' houses and, you know, Christmas parties, and everyone else is talking about, hey, when I was 5, I did this. And when I was 15 and I did this. And I'm like, you know, or my mother would say to me, oh, you only remember the bad times.
Oh, yeah, I know. I got that too.
I don't have any memories of, I seriously do not have that. And so I spent like almost, I don't know, you know, years digging and digging and digging and digging and digging, saying, please, just let me remember, you know, please hypnotize me, let me see. Your body has this divine way of knowing that you may not be able to handle that, or that you may, whatever. The point is, you have to at some point be willing to let go and move forward. I may never remember some of the things I may want to remember. I have to be okay with that. I know that what I'm feeling, I know that the few pieces that I could see are valid and true, because I have a lot of other evidence to substantiate that. Okay. However, I have to be okay. I have to be willing to stand on my own 2 feet, honor who I am, love myself, love them, and forgive them, even if I have even no relationship with them anymore. Or I may re-establish one, and it still may be different. My mother and I may never see eye to eye till the day either of her and I die. However, I can still now love her and empath for her, knowing what she's kind of been through, or wherever she is, okay, and move forward. But you have to make that choice.
Because I think forgiveness is giving the person the capacity to make the next right choice, right? I don't think it's about rectifying the story. And I think that's where we come from, in that, you know, we think that forgiveness is having everybody have the same story. For us to be able to sit down and go, yeah, that's what happened. Well, that's really not going to happen in a traumatic situation, you know, very rarely. If it does, wow, blessings, right?
Like really,
I think mostly it's deciding that you're not going to play the game anymore, that you're not going to play tug of war, the back and forth, having the same exact. I guess I came to a point where I was like, how many times have I had this conversation over my 54 years? How many times the same exact conversation? And it's like Groundhog Day. You wake up the next day and it's as if you had not spoken. It's everything's rewind to the same exact place. And I think forgiveness is just being receptive to them making the next right choice. You know, it's not judging and walking into the scenario with a different, with a preconceived story. You know, I just met with my mother recently, and it was interesting. You know, it was interesting, but I wasn't going to not meet with her. I went with an open mind of like, let's see, can we walk in and establish something? You know, she sat with her sunglasses on the whole time. And I was like, well, she still doesn't want me to see her. And she really doesn't want to see me. And that's a pretty obvious statement, right? To sit with your sunglasses on for 2 hours. So, I think we just have to be receptive to what shows up and react to it without getting jerked sideways. And I think part of that is expectancy, right? It's not like walking in saying with an idea of Beaver Cleaver Mom. You've never had that. You've never, you get where I'm going there? Like, I think we have this idea of what that relationship is supposed to be like, and we're just constantly sitting there salivating like, a dog with a treat, waiting for that moment. And I think we just have to step back, give them space to be who and what they are, and to react in their own way without judgment.
That is the biggest component. For years, I was fighting my mother all the time because all I wanted to do was I wanted to hear her say I'm sorry, or that she believed me. We have to, and so what she's saying in that, and what she was just relaying there, is that we have to be okay with letting go with that expectation of what you want or need. And that's the other piece, is we can actually fulfill our own needs. We don't need other people to do that. And that's the biggest piece of becoming whole. And loving yourself, you learn that you don't need others to love you. You have to be able to love yourself. And so I finally gave up the need to get my mother's approval, or my brother talking to me, or anyone believing me, right? When I finally let go of those things, then I can move forward. The more you hold on to that bone of needing approval, the person saying thank you or any of that, you're never gonna be able to move forward. And so like she said, she sat there, and like I met with my mother for the first time in 10 years, like literally last year.
Me too. It'd been 8.
Yeah, I actually had talked to her on the phone. My husband died in 90. Wait, no, my father. Well, anyways, it was back like in 89, and after that happened, I didn't speak to her for a very long time. And then I spoke to her. And then I was moving, and I spoke to her once in 2004, and then we didn't see each other again. And I finally, and we still kept in touch, and we were still working on her stuff, and I finally physically saw her for the first time last year, and it was very. And I have to say, it was traumatizing. Only from the perspective is that she came here, just wanted to love me and hug me, and I'm just going, whoa, right? Totally opposite, right? She was
totally the opposite. Yeah, my mom was like this.
She wasn't distant. She was like, she hadn't seen me so long, and she just wanted to like hug me and love me, and I was kind of like, well, whoa, like just hold on, right?
Right.
Like, I need to like see you. I need to process you. I need to talking to you on the phone is very different than having seen your mother for a millennium, right? So again, and I'm saying this for a reason. Both parties, when you're choosing to come back together and establish a relationship, please honor each other's space. Realize that the two of you may not be on the same space. Honor that space coming together slowly. Don't just go like hug and love somebody. Okay, it's not that what she did was wrong. She was doing, from her perspective, she just wanted to know that she loved me, okay? Which was great. I'm really, I'm blessed for that. At the same time, from my perspective, I was just like, I haven't hugged you or like in like eons. I needed time to hear you, to talk to you, to, bond with you, right? So we need to honor where each person's at. It doesn't mean that I'm mad at her or hate her or anything. It's just that because I've worked really hard at creating boundaries and, still being open-hearted and being open-minded, I needed a little bit of space. And, obviously by the time she left after 2 days, I let her hug me, right? And I hugged her back. However, I needed that. And I finally said something to my stepdad. I was like, please just talk to her. I need a little bit of time. I need to feel. I need to process. I need to, some people are saying, well, you're saying that you just saw her last year and oh my God, you haven't done your work and, you shouldn't be allowed to talk about this or to treat people or, whatever. It's like,
we have to start talking about it. We have to, because if we don't, people can't see that what they're doing. I mean, if we don't start talking, that's how the patterns keep being created, right?
So important to stop that cycle, to create a I know from just other stories that there was still incest going on for years, and other cousins that literally have committed suicide and blah blah blah. I mean, there's a long whatever, and I know there's still and you can only do your part. I can speak to them blue in the face. The people that choose to still think I'm a liar and that I'm a promiscuous child and whatever else, okay, are going to believe that. And I have to be okay with that. That's what I'm trying to explain to people. No matter how much work you do, no matter how much healing you do, no matter how much thriving I do, okay, there's always going to be people from that camp or whatever you will that are still going to think you're crazy, that are still going to think you're bad, that you're still going to think it's your fault, right? And you have to get to the point that it does not matter. You have to know that what you went through is not who you are. Who you are is who you've created now. I'm a positive person. I care about people. I help people, right? I'm not in this victim energy of woe is me. I still do things. I still help people. So I work on myself.
The only thing we have control over are our thoughts, our words, and our actions. We can't, I think that as children, when we go through that, we're always reaching out and trying to balance the situations, right? We're always reaching out and trying to make everybody feel better. And in reality, the kid is walking around with this, carrying all the weight. And I think that then we enter our adult life doing the same thing, trying to maneuver and balance the situations. And, I think that that's part of it, is just stepping back, let everybody balance their own situation. It's like a game of tug of war. If you're playing tug of war for 2 hours, your hands are going to be blistered. They're going to be tired. Your legs are going to be tired. You're going to be exhausted, and you're possibly still going to be pulling, right? I think in the end, it's just letting go of the rope. Now, you can't be in control. What if the rope gets hung up on a rock? You know, there are so many times where my family calls, "You're so angry." And I'm like, really? Like, I'm just sitting here. I really hadn't thought about this for a long time. Like, I'm just sitting here doing my thing, and you're screaming. So obviously, they're sitting down building a whole story, right? Because they're thinking I'm still playing tug of war. Bottom line, their time is what's being spent. I'm living. To me, that's forgiveness, being able to just go, hey.
So Cherie and I could talk forever, and I really don't want to just go on and on and on. And so I'm going to end with these two things. One is I really encourage you to go read this book, Junebug. If anyone wants some inspiration and that you don't have to survive, you can thrive, I encourage anyone, please dial 911, go reach out and get help. Realize it's strength, it's not weakness in getting help. And I don't care if you're male or female, do what you need to do to love yourself, let go, move forward, and thrive in your life. It is possible. And I'm not saying that her and I never have meltdowns and that we're perfect.
Oh, no, I just had one the other day. I just had one. Perfect, right? Because my family wanted to hang out. They wanted me to come. And I'm like, I'm not ready for that.
So you have to do what you need to do, and it doesn't mean that if you do have a meltdown that you haven't done the work, that you're still in drama land or victim land. It just means that you might have had a slip up. You might have gone back a step. All right, and what do? The next morning you get up, you get back on your horse, and you ride. So, or you
found a new trigger to pull out, so that next time you won't get thrown back there. I like to think about it like that. It's like you found that, last couple landmines, right? Pluck them out, and get up and go on. Don't judge yourself.
The biggest thing I like to do with my clients is I call them building toolboxes. And I don't care if it's a corporate client or a person I'm working with on one-on-one who actually needs tools to deal with post-traumatic stress or whatever it is, okay? Toolboxes where you open it up, and there's all these plethora of resources that you can go in there and pull it out when you're in a situation. And maybe you have to make this huge business deal. And you're like, okay, how do I do this? And in your one of your toolboxes may be that Rolodex, where you go through the Rolodex and it's, I'm gonna contact my CTO or a person on an advisory board or something to talk about that deal, okay? Or that toolbox could be that I carry an iPod everywhere I go, so that if I'm having a little bit of a panic or something happens, all I gotta do is plug in my iPod and go through my playlist, and that playlist has sound vibratory music or meditational music. Everybody has different tools they need. I don't care what it is. And the biggest thing I always try to emphasize people is mind, body, business, spirit is all interconnected. Why? Because if your mind's out of whack, it affects your body. If your body's out of whack, it affects this. And if your person is in disaster mode, you don't think it's going to affect your company or your coworkers? You don't think they know that something's going on? Hell yes, they do. So we need to get our mind, body, business, and spirit working together, talking together, balanced, okay? So, I'm always talking about this, bridging the East and the West. It's not woo-woo. It's not metaphysically, like up in the clouds woo-woo. This is grounded, practical statements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything. Everything you do affects everything. It's a change.
Gandhi. I love Gandhi. He says, what you think, what you say, and what you do is, when they're all in line, that's happiness, right? That's happiness. When no matter who is in the room, that's where we have to get to. And that's what's hard with our families, is being able to walk in and stay in your integrity. Be able to be you, no matter if your mom's sitting there, no matter if your brother's sitting there, no matter if the Pope's sitting there, no matter if the president's sitting there, you're going to be you in your integrity. And I think that's the goal, right?
Absolutely. So the last thoughts I'd like to say is that, remember, your past is not who you are. There are experiences where you've had the choice to learn from, grow, and move forward or not. Go reach out for people if you need to. Reach out to people that have similar experiences. Reach out to Cherie or other people that may do this kind of work. Please go to her website, Okay, and it's CherieDoyen.com, and that's CherieDoyen. Read her book. I always put together this amazing blog post that has embedded video, it has embedded podcast. So if you're listening to this, everything's on a blog post. I have the blog post link on the graphics. I'm going to post it everywhere. And I always love bringing you guys valuable content. And there's a subject you'd like to hear about or an author you'd like to hear from, whether it be business, about social media, or healing, whatever it is, feel free to reach out. You can email me at Carly, A, my middle initial, Thorne, THORNE.com. Visit my website, CarlyAlyssaThorne.com, CarlyAlyssaThorne.com. Thank you so much, Cherie, for just spending all this time with me. It's been greatly appreciated. You're a beautiful human being, great, wonderful book. And I wish everybody a beautiful, wonderful day.